Hey, the Democrats, they say we're a democracy, and the Republicans say we're a constitutional republic. Actually, we've been a kind of a secret military dictatorship, cabal, whatever. Our leaders are told what to do, at least in the past, because they have dirt on them. A lot of pedophilia, somebody on the side. They got money deals, they're going to go down if they don't do what they're told. But really, what I want to talk about is one of the things that happens with that kind of a system, a dictatorship, is the land grab. They're grabbing people's land. How are they doing it? Well, they're burning people out. They're using weather weapons to manipulate storms, like in the Appalachian, North Carolina area, South Carolina, Tennessee, where they had like a super flood. People, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. Come on, don't be so damn stupid. First of all, if the establishment media is telling you something's a conspiracy theory, you could take that to the bank. It's really happening. Especially if they squawk a lot about it. They call it an outrageous conspiracy theory, then you know for sure it's really happening. But they've been able to do this weather modification since, even before Vietnam. But look up Operation Popeye, where they flooded the Ho Chi Minh Trail and blew out bridges and dams and things that they couldn't get with bombs because they weren't that precise back in those days. Well, what do you do about it? Well, if everybody, especially in California and in Lahaina, and maybe even in Appalachia, I don't know how many people get online and how something like this could get out. But what they need to do is they need to become Georgists. Now, if you don't know what that is, that's the problem. That's why you're being ripped off and scammed. But the idea is very simple. A Georgist believes that what you create with your mind, your hands, with your labor, that's yours to decide what to do with. Which Trump is kind of going along with. He wants to eliminate income tax. It's really a self-funding slave management system. It's a free-range slave plantation, essentially. You're allowed to walk around. You're not having a ball and chain on you unless you get in big trouble. Then they put the ball and chain on you, make you work. But you're allowed to roam around thinking you're free, so you make more uh, stuff to be stolen. What should we do instead of that? Well, I'm saying if you become a Georgist and you believe that that kind of stuff you own, what about the land? Do you own the land? Did you make the land? No. God created the land, and God wants us to share the land. And good news is, man, there's plenty of land. More land. That's up at the population explosion back in the 60s. The population bomb is going to blow up and there's going to be people every. No, it's not happening. It's the opposite's happening now, especially since they decided they're going to kill so many of us. They've killed millions of people with their little genocide plans to cull the population because these are sickos, these are Malthusians who have the economics all wrong. Henry George had the economics exactly correct. That's why in his book Progress and Poverty, it's a hard book to read. Y'all have no attention span now, like goldfish. It's going to take you. It took me, and I come from the old school where you had to concentrate and focus for a while, and not just look at things every 20 seconds. And it took me 3 or 4 readings before I could get the understanding of this 800 plus page book that explains how you're getting ripped off by not having an equal access to the land. How do you do that? Do you do it with, well, seize all the land like Gavin Newsom's doing, and then he's going to decide how the land is going to be used proper for climate change, which of course there is no climate change to speak of. It makes any difference to us. Weather modification, yeah, yeah. Even if you go with their argument that climate change caused the fires there, hey, if you knew climate change was coming, why didn't you have water in the fire hydrants? Why didn't you fill up the? Why did you? We all know it. So why? It's obvious they burn these people out. So the good news is there's millions and millions of them, and only a few crooks like Gavin Newsom. who are just doing a new kind of land grab. And y'all better wise up. They're going to do this all over the country and around the world. Their idea is to drive us out of the rural areas and into these smart cities. You're pretty stupid if you live there because we're easier to control. If they put up a big high rise, then it's so easy to control those people, much, much easier than having a neighborhood where there's fences and yards between people and people have an amount of privacy. Whereas in these big high rises, the people self report on the other people. Everybody knows your business. Everybody knows when you're coming in, when you're going out, you know, and it's much more fragmented way to live than to live in a little neighborhood where you got Joe living over here and Mary across the street, and you know them and you help each other out and look after one another. Got William across the street here. He's got a camera system, shows everything. Nobody's going to commit crimes. We're on camera. So how do we fix the problem? Well, if you all just become Georgist, and you got to look into becoming a Georgist. Yeah, you Democrats think, oh, communism, commie, socialism. These are things that have been around for 150 years or more. They're failed. They're stupid. But the capitalism, the way they're implementing it, has a flaw. And the flaw has to do with the land. The way you fix it, you don't seize everybody's land or burn them out and then seize it. No. The people who own those properties there in Palisades, for instance, or Lahaina, they should have the right to those properties again. And they shouldn't have to pay any taxes until they're back on their feet again building a house. And that house should belong to them 100%. No tax on houses. No tax on any improvements to the land. The only tax that they would pay once they get back on their feet, because this is the government's responsibility, they did it on purpose, so they shouldn't be expecting money, at least not for a while, until they get back on their feet. But if they all realize this, if you all become Georgist and look into this economic model, that's not capitalism. It takes the flaws out of capitalism. And even Karl Marx said, hey, paraphrasing, if capitalism is ever going to work, you have to follow what Henry George advised. And what it means is you pay for your location. So once they get back on their feet, then they'll pay a location tax for the value of their location. The better the location, for example, those ones right along with the Pacific Ocean, that's going to be your highest value location. They're going to pay the most money. But the good news is they're not going to pay for any tax on their house. That belongs to them. You'll be able to build more and more and more value in your house and improvements. And guess what? You won't pay more tax. You won't be punished for fixing your house up anymore. But the other side of the coin is you're not going to get rewarded for doing nothing with your land or becoming a slumlord or just having it vacant, maybe allowing people to charge and park cars on it for several decades, while all your neighbors and their tax money and their private money makes that location more and more and more valuable, and you're paying nothing because you don't have a house on it down. That's what they really tax you on now. Now, tax a location. Then those slumlords and real estate speculators will have to pay the same amount of money as you next door with a nice house and a yard and a fence and a shed and all that, a pool. Those are all tax free. You're a Georgist. Now, if you don't have enough sense to look into, well, what's it mean to be a Georgist? And what about Henry George and Progress and Poverty, his masterpiece? Maybe you ought to look into it and look into this idea of only taxing for the location value of locations that are of average value to the best locations. Now, if you're less than average, you're not going to pay anything in taxes. For example, if you're a farmer way out in the boonies, you have no location. You're way out in the boonies. You don't have all the cultural things that you have in the middle of a vibrant city. Why should you pay the same? Your tax would be, little to nothing, because it's not based on the improvements of the land. The location of the land is what you tax. See, and you're just paying. It's a rent. You're paying the government a rent for that location that you own for as long as you pay that location value tax. So I'd look into it. You smart alecky socialist and communist and capitalist and think you know everything. You know nothing. You know nothing about being a Georgist. You all look into it though, unless you're stupid and want to keep being burned out and flooded out by the government while they steal your land.